So this comes up a lot where we are talking to parts departments and they're constantly short-handed or feel short-handed. And it's even increased in the last couple of years where I feel like it's always been like this. Parts managers tend to be counter people, the shipping, receiving, they're just all over the place. It's good to be like that, but my question to you is, what is the standard or how does a dealer figure out how many people the parts departments need?
Well, typically, there's a couple of things that they've done in native standards. I don't know how they've changed recently because I'm not involved with native, but they'll look at the percentage of salaries and expenses. Somewhere around 35–40% of the expenses in the parts department should be spent on people. Okay. And another way to look at it is, what is the gross profit generated by each counter person? And with there, you just can't take one counter person and go, holy cow, look at all the gross they're generating. Say it's the person who works the technician's counter and gets to hand out, technicians know what they want, and they're repetitious. They're always handing out a lot of parts and in customer pay, a lot more gross than it would be, say, you got a wholesale counter person or somebody working retail, Kaylee. So you got to take it overall and divide it by the number of employees. I have a perfect example of this when I was in the dealership. I had a counter person who came to me and he said, I generate almost as much gross as the 7 guys working the wholesale counter. He says, I think I deserve a raise. I'm making more profit for this dealership than all these people. So I made a deal with him because, when you think about it, yeah, he was. It looked great. But what I did with him is I said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to take you and I'm going to put you up at the retail counter. And I'm going to take the retail person who happened to be a pretty good, counter person as well, very seasoned. And I'm going to put him back where you are. And if you can generate 50% more gross at the front retail counter, their name were Kevin or Arnold, but I said, Kevin, if you can go up and you can generate that much, 50% more profit and sales than Arnold is, I'll give you the raise. Because I knew what was going to happen. Because on that retail counter, that was also our wholesale will call. And so here, Arnold, people would call in, check a number or whatever, dealerships buying things, some garages would come and get stuff. Other counter people, parts advisors, would file these tickets and put them up there. Arnold was constantly handing them out. And then we would get the person who came in who would say, I want touch-up paint for my car. And he'd have to go out and get the touch-up paint coat off the car and look at the VIN or whatever. All of that takes time. And so when I moved Kevin up there and I put Arnold back with the technicians, Arnold actually increased his sales by about 10%, and Kevin was actually a little bit less or about the same, and it only took 2 days, Kaylee, 2 days, and he came back and says, I get it. I totally get it. And so, those are the types of things when you're working as a department, you're working as a team, you want to make sure that you're looking at the overall department and what type of sales mix that you have. That has a lot to do with it. If you're doing a lot of wholesale and not a lot of customer pay in the shop, more than likely that's the kiss of death. That's where you start to see a lot less profitability. So there's a lot of things that go into that, but typically the way it's measured is the percentage of the expenses going toward employees. And then on the backside is looking at what is our overall gross divided by, the people in the department.
Okay, that makes sense. And that's a good thing to know because I do hear that a lot. Like, how many people do we need? But it also kind of ties into one question I wanted to ask you about just customer satisfaction and how the parts department kind of plays into, or how can it impact retention? Because I feel like it's not talked about enough. So we focus on service and customer retention on service, but how does the parts department contribute to that with service?
Wow. Well, let's put it this way. Service and parts, they're combined at the hip. I always say they're Siamese twins. Technicians need parts to turn labor hours. And the parts department need the technicians to do that. The more parts you carry in your inventory, the more efficient technicians are, the more you're earning in labor dollars, but no matter how it is, trying to maintain a good, profitable mix. And we're certainly finding out that the ASRs aren't exactly the right answer. They come close, but maintaining and making sure that you have the parts more often is a big deal. You and I just came back from a meeting where they talked about the customer experience and customer satisfaction. And I think one of the things I really came away from with that is dealerships are turning to automation. We listened to that one phone call where, the person called a dealership and, they go, "Oh, are you so-and-so and you own this vehicle?" "Yes." "Do you want to schedule an oil change?" "Yes." "Do you want anything else done?" "No." "Our first available appointment is 8:30 tomorrow morning. Would you like that?" "Yes." "Thank you. See you tomorrow." Click.
Yeah. But something I would interject, and I don't know if it happens in this phone call, but there's something that we're missing is those regular maintenance that are, so if they know the vehicle we have and how many miles we have, and we as a consumer, we just think we need an oil change, but maybe we're up for the 40K service and we need XYZ. Well, the shop needs to book for that. So why, that contributes to parts. So I feel
Well,
like these
and
automation
remember,
processes need to do that.
absolutely.
That's a totally different conversation.
But remember, typically AI hasn't got that far that it can do that much and know,
No.
"Oh, you got to
Maybe,
do that."
yeah.
And, and I'm old school, so you're never going to convince me. And maybe someone, Gen Z or whatever, maybe that's a little different, Kaylee, but
Yeah.
I like to talk to a real person. And, they brought some of that up in the cost of having someone talking with them and stuff like that. And as you know, they did that mystery shopping and they were calling dealerships, and it was shocking at the customer experience and what was happening, generalized because short-staffed, whatever. How do you try and overcome short-staffed departments, whether it's parts, service, or whatever?
Yeah.
Let's have an automated phone attendant. And I know even me calling some of our clients, parts managers, trying to get through to them through the automated system, an email almost works a lot better. And then they call me right away, where I can leave them a voicemail, him or her, and I don't hear back from them. So part of the customer satisfaction, there's the first part where making sure you have the right order mix to take care of your technicians. Anybody can say that. It's been said for years.
Yes.
But the number two thing is remembering that customer is a real life person. And you want to, I don't know how many times I hear, "You're our number one priority. We want to take care of you." Well, prove it. Pick up the phone and talk to me.
Yes.
So those all lead in to the right customer experience. And that's what I loved about the way they did it. Let's talk about what the customer experience in the future is really going to be. And
Yeah.
to me, it's communication and talking with people and making them feel like they care about me.
Yeah. And I think even meeting the customer where they want to be met and understanding the different ways to communicate, whether it be through automation or physically talking. I think the industry as a whole is really focusing on that, and it'll evolve. I think we're figuring it out.
Right. And, technicians tend to go wherever they can, where they're going to, sell upselling flushes and things like that. There's been a lot of talk about, maybe we're upselling too much and stuff like that. But I got to be honest with you, the couple of dealerships I go to, they don't upsell me enough.
And is it really upselling? Because it's the main, it's what your vehicle needs.
Yeah,
So it's not-
upselling is probably a way of saying we should recommend this.
Yeah, I think it's
Typically,
frustrating for techs when those things don't get recommended, and
exactly.
then you're like,
And I don't know if that's more of a fear. And I used to say this, and I had one guy who started cussing at me, and we had to cut him off when I did a webinar a few years ago. I told him, I said, "It sounds like your service advisors or order takers, they don't know how to sell." And, the guy got really mad at me. And, that sometimes I think, well, we really don't want to overindulge or overcharge them and inundate them with a whole bunch of other recommendations. But I'd like to think I'm a fairly smart consumer because I work in the industry. But, if someone called up and said, okay, I want A, B, and C, I can take A and B and say, no, I don't need C. I'd like to have it recommended to me as an upsell, which to me, recommendations is just a fancy word for upselling. They used to have the old chit boards that the technician could upsell something or a service advisor. They take it off. Ooh, $5. Ooh, $3. Ooh, $20. That kind of incentive, I don't really think you need to do that. You just need to recommend what needs to be done and let the customer, us, make that decision. Sometimes I just don't see that anymore. I think the art of that is kind of lost, and maybe it's a fear of losing customers. I don't know.
Yeah, it might be. But that's a good point.